We are in business, people. All right, let's hear this thing, seniors. All right. Super seniors. Hey. Better late than never. Nice work. Well, thank you all for turning out for this next event for the senior class here. We got some exciting things planned. We have an amazing lineup of speakers here tonight. It's going to be a great time, so I think you're going to walk away from this evening with a lot of things to continue to think about and take forth over the next semester or for the next few weeks, for those of you that are graduating in December. There we go. December grads. When you graduate in December, that typically means something went wrong at some point. But you made it. Or things went extremely well. There they are. Overachievers. You'll probably get your tires slashed after this for that. I want to start with a couple of quick thank yous. And this goes out to a couple of the seniors that are in here, Sam Carlton and Tyler Parker. They're out over here. Just wanted to say thank you for all those chili peppers on ratemyprofessor.com. You guys didn't have to do that, but you did, and I appreciate it. I also want to start off with an apology, and this is an apology actually on behalf of President Wallace. He's going to come a little later, but he wanted me to take care of this. Because when you came here freshman year, or when you transferred in, he made a promise to you. And he has fallen short on that promise so far, because when he came here, he promised that at some point in your tenure at APU, that Mexicali would be able to produce a queso that was neither yellow water nor nearly dried concrete mix. And they haven't quite done it, but they do have one more semester, so fingers crossed. I'm just kidding. Some people give Mexicali a hard time, but I admire Mexicali. It's not every day a restaurant can produce a chicken that looks different and tastes different every single day of the year. So they got that going for them. It's also not easy when you have 7 soda spouts and 3 of them are spraying some sort of dirty water every day. So it keeps you on your toes. Psh, nope, not that one. I'll find it. Psh, no, it's not that one. Steer clear of the Dr. Pepper, everybody. Nope. Can we fix this? I don't know what is happening. The good news, though, is if you can't find the soda that you want, you can always just jaunts around the corner to Pause and Go and pick up a $4 water. So that's nice. That's always a nice feature. It's well organized around here. Also, after you graduate and you move off, who knows, move into LA, if you ever get homesick and you miss APU, you can always make your way to LAX and buy an Uncrustable for $12 that will remind you of home here at APU. So that's excellent as well. Where are the music? Do we have any music students? Any music students here? 3 representing all of the music department. Apparently low graduation rates for music this year. Might want to run that by admissions. Music students, I want to thank you for reminding me that even at APU, that's been God first since 1899, that there still is a little slice of hell here on earth, and it's located over at the Munson Courtyard, where you can listen to people try to tune their tuba for 8 hours a day. I don't know why it takes so long to get that tuba tuned. And how many tubas are there? It's like an army of tuba players on this campus. I don't know where they're coming from, if they're like shipping them in from CBU, or what is happening here. But it's like they all shared their Google calendars. Like, we got spots to fill, people, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. We got to have a tuba going. We see an empty slot on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 3. Who's going to fill that spot? Don't make me get a trumpetist playing in here. It's like tuba all day long. My office was in Ronald for the last 5 years. Just a tuba right outside my window. Need to run that by HR. But just for the fun of it, when you graduate, for those music students and those trombone players and whatnot, I'm going to show up to their work next year and just try to tune a trombone outside of their window and see how they feel about it. Just 8 hours a day. I had to actually tell my students, if you come to my office and you see me inside but my door is closed, just feel free to come on in. The door is physically closed for the tubas, but it's emotionally open for you. So just know that. Any campus safety workers? No. Just none. None of us showed up for their coffee dates, so they're not showing up for nothing that anybody else puts on. I don't know what campus safety is doing, but during the week, Monday through Friday, you just see these blue shirts everywhere. And then on the weekends, you can't find nobody. Sometimes I show up here and I need a grade on a Saturday. I need to get into Ronald. I call him up. Hey, I'm a faculty member. I need to get into Ronald. It's going to be a while. Yeah, of course. Of course it's going to be a while. Of course it will be. Yeah, our nearest campus safety person, they're going to have to come all the way over from Pepperdine. So I just hang tight. Appreciate that. This was an interesting experience with campus safety once. I ride my bike a lot to and from, and I was riding my bike from East Campus over to West Campus. And I actually rode my bike right by this campus safety worker who was also talking on the phone. And you know how sometimes you just buzz past people and you just catch like a phrase or a snippet of the conversation? And you're wondering like, what on earth could they be talking about? I'm riding my bike by this campus safety person and I hear him say, yeah, all I used was like 2% of my bicep. What? What kind of conversation are you even having? And how do you even do that? Are you just picking up like a pencil? Why are you even talking about that? The good news is, though, should we ever have an intruder at APU, we do have a campus safety official walking around with 98% untapped potential in their bicep. So that feels comforting. Any campus tour guides? Campus tour, hey, there we go. A couple of campus tour guides. My question for these campus tour guides is, how do you introduce the multimedia rooms to students and parents and not be thoroughly embarrassed? That's my question. At some point, we need to think about changing the names of those rooms or upgrading the technology. One of the two needs to happen. I don't know how you do that. Like we're on East Campus. East Campus is it's the older of the two campuses. And then there's West Campus, a little newer. Most people kind of figure out this is the older campus themselves. Generally, when they go by the Rose Garden and see that building was built in the 1800s out of mud and clay. But we did we added a Rose Garden just to take their focus off of the buildings. And then the other reason is that some people notice these multimedia rooms. As if people are like, and I did notice this is multimedia 5 through 8. Did we skip 1 through 4? Where's that? Oh, that's on the other side of the library. Why is it over there? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But if you think that's weird, just try to find your way over to West Campus and try to locate Duke 210. We have a random way of numbering things here at APU. Nobody cares. Just throw some numbers into the wind and see where they land, and then wonder why everybody's late. Why are you late? Because I had to commute from Pasadena, also known as East Campus. It's just like unbelievable. But these multimedia rooms, seriously, these are the multimedia rooms. Oh man, multimedia rooms? What kind of stuff you got in there? Like 3D projectors, 3D printers, hologram software? What are we talking? No. Come with me. Come check this out. See that right there in the corner? That's a 1976 overhead projector. If you want to use that, though, you're going to want to bring from home your own transparencies and a pen. We've also got this really sweet 4x3 standard definition overhead projector. If you want to use that, you just pull it down like this. You just pull it down like this. I swear it comes down. But if it doesn't, then the professors just scooch this 1985 Office Depot giant desk over on top of the cord. Try not to throw out their backs. So that's nice. So this is the multimedia room. If you ever want to check that out, if you're ever in need of such amazing media, this is the place to be. What's that in the back corner? What's behind that random miscellaneous door there? What's behind that thing that looks like the back door of a shed for an axe murderer? What's back there? Oh, that's where we store all the bodies from the students that wanted to transfer to Biola. We got this is an honor and a privilege to be able to be here with the seniors. There's a lot of my communication students that are here as well. This is being put on by the Office of Alumni Engagement. So you have them to thank for all the bells and whistles and all the treats and giveaways and things that are happening here tonight, the Office of Alumni Engagement. And part of that is becoming mindful that there are a lot of resources at hand long after you graduate from here at APU. And that's one of the main themes of tonight. We also have things and gifts and raffle prizes that are being sponsored by APU's IMT computer store, the graduate and professional admissions, the university bookstore, and the university advancement as well. Whoa! Some big fans of university advancement. They're the one. University advancement has one Facebook follower, and that's her. If anybody wanted, I'm just kidding. You guys this is a sensitive crowd, and I apologize if you have been offended. If you really loved those multimedia rooms and just had the Latina dance nights in there and everything else. There's a lot going on, people. All right, so we are going to move into our first speaker. We have an incredible lineup, seriously. There are some that are current faculty. We have some that are nearby pastors. We have others that are nearby professionals. All of them are intimately connected here at APU, including our first speaker, Ariel Astoria. She is going to be speaking on the topic of friends, and she is originally from Northern California. There we go. Now resides in Pasadena, California. I got higher, lower, north, south, California. Okay. She is a writer, speaker, and creative. She graduated from APU in 2015 with a degree in psychology, with a focus on theater integration to be a creative bridge between intellect and creativity, the mind and the heart. Through various aspects of storytelling, spoken word, event hosting, acting, voiceovers, Ariel orchestrates her art out of a words not for the ears but for the soul motto. She is the co-author of 2 self-published collections of poetry. There we go. Including Vagabonds and Zealots from 2014 and Right Bloody Spill Pretty in 2017. And in 2016, she released her EP of poetry and music titled Symphony of a Lioness. Please help me welcome to the stage, Ariel Astoria.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Okay, so I'm going to make you do a thing. I'm going to make you stand up. Yeah, I said stand up. Let's go. I know you're tired. You have an IV of coffee in your veins. Stand up. All right. And I just want you to take a really big, deep inhale. And I want you to take a really deep exhale. Let it all out. One more time. Take it in. Let it out. Give a little shake to your right arm, and a little shake to your left arm, and a little shake to your right leg, and a little shake to your left leg. One last deep breath in and out. Have a seat. Hi, I'm Ariel Astoria. My last name's Wilburn. If you knew me here, then you knew Wilburn. Astoria is just my middle name, but I had to drop it for branding's sake because Wilburn's not cute or aesthetically pleasing on anything. So my name is Ariel. I am an alumni. I made you stand up and breathe because I've been exactly where you've been at this very moment, in this very room. And I know how crazy this year is for you, whether you're graduating in December or May, or you're doing what I like to call a victory lap, because I also took one of those victory laps. I graduated and still had a class to take, statistics. It was the devil, and I mean that with everything inside of me. So I will be talking to you about friendships today. And when I sat there and I thought about it, I kind of had to giggle to myself, because my story of friendships at APU is like a little rocky. I got here my freshman year from the Bay Area, and it's a bit of a culture shock when it's like two different Californias. I'm just going to say that. It's two different Californias, and you get here and it's a little different. The culture is a little different. And so my freshman year, I had no friends, like zero friends, except for my RA. She was great, and I love her to this day. I spent a lot of time in the prayer chapel or in my bed watching Psych and eating cookie dough. Yes, it's coming back. There's a movie happening, so everyone get excited. And so that was my freshman year. I would have people who were in my room before, where it's like an endearing thing to come and visit. It's weird. I used to live here. You live here now. Hey. And so I would have girls come and I used to live in this room. And my roommates were never there when they did. So after about the third time, they were like, do you have roommates? And I'm like, yeah, they're somewhere and doing things that I'm not, and that was kind of like the context of my freshman year. So my friendships didn't really come about until my sophomore year. And I kind of say that's the year where I struck gold, because not only did I walk away with those friendships to this day, but I also found out a lot more of what my heart beat and what it meant for me to be a student on this campus. So my friendships came from my AC group. I was a AC leader for incoming freshmen. You all know how that, yeah, woo-woo, AC leader. I was an AC leader. And my friendships came from that AC group. They were starting with boys, and I was like, I lived in Adams on purpose. I had no intention of having any guy friends or being around any human of the opposite sex. And so my first friend was Curtis Izazaki. And he's still on this campus to this day. And he was like, we're going to be friends. And so most of our pictures that year was me like this and him just squeezing me, and that is the epitome of our friendship, and it continued. So everyone in that group were the people that I call my nuggets of gold. I got to keep them even after the rainbow was done. I left APU, and those were the people who I got to be in their wedding. Those were the people who I got to be in Seattle and be in Idlewild with. We stayed intentional with one another, and that's the biggest part of when you walk away from here. They're no longer in the hall next to you. They're no longer in the apartment next to you. You can't just walk past one another and be like, want to get coffee? Great, we're going to get coffee. And you probably won't, but eventually you'll get there, right? But even more so when you graduate, when you leave, there has to be such an intentionality. It's cool. All right, so today is October 23rd. Awesome. So I'm gone this week, but can we do December 19th? That's the kind of intentionality you have to have with one another. Being willing to wait that time out. Or it's, all right, cool, I have a whole day. Let me drive to La Habra, because that's where my sophomore roommate lives now, in La Habra, with her husband and her child. So being intentional in that friendship meant being able to be in her wedding. And then the most exciting part is going to the hospital the day after her child is born. The idea of friendships post-grad, grown-up friendships are rad. They're fun. They're so exciting. And they're hard. And they take work. And they're beautiful at the same time. There's a whole nother level of life outside of these doors, walls, this campus. It's amazing. It's terrifying. Actually terrifying, but you'll get through it. It's fine. Come talk to me. You can have coffee. It's terrifying, but it's so, so beautiful. So intentionality. Like I said, for me, I didn't have those friendships my freshman year, so finding my tribe, right? We say community, we're doing life together, we're in community, right? When you leave, it becomes like find your tribe. Like these are the people that you start building and really doing life with. My life group, my senior year, is now the same general life group that I have now, and we were able to sit in this post-grad mess. I don't even really know what to call it, this post-grad mess, and we cried a lot in our life group. And that's just what it looked like, was being in a life group together and crying and talking about how weird it was and how we sit under trees and journal, and we really don't know what our next day looks like because no one gave us a syllabus, so we don't really know what we're supposed to do or where we're supposed to go. And also, do we buy our own groceries? Does someone come in here and fix this sink, or do I fix it myself? There's a lot of things happening, and to have those people, that tribe, to sort through those things with, to ask those hard questions. What happens if I didn't meet him ring by spring? Where do I find him now? Church? Or even you guys? Where are we going with this? There's something so important about finding your tribe. And what that means is, yes, intentionality, but people who are willing to hold and take your mess in those moments that you're not willing to give anything in return. And that's okay. I see you. I hear you. I'm not going anywhere. I see you, I hear you, and I'm not going anywhere. That is the mantra when we find our tribe. I see you, I hear you, and I'm not going anywhere. Because I saw you sophomore year, and I saw you junior year, and I saw you senior year, and now you get to actually be outside in the real world, whatever that means, and do life together, be in community still with one another. And it looks very different. A lot of what else this looks like is making room and letting go. A lot of the friends I had while at APU are not still my friends. We see each other on Instagram, we see each other on Facebook, we say happy birthday to one another, but we're not actually doing life or in community with one another. And that's really hard, especially in this 4, 5, 6 years of our time here. We get so in depth and in community with people because we just told them our life story on the Cougar Walk, and we think, yep, that's it. You're not going anywhere. And more than likely, they probably will go somewhere. They will go back home. They will move across the country. They will do whatever it is. And sometimes that friendship won't be there. And being willing to let go of that loss in order to make room for another friendship to come. And surprisingly, I have a lot of really good friends that I met off of Instagram, which our parents told us not to do, because stranger danger. But actually, it would be that post where you're like, does anyone want to go on a hike with me? And I'd go on a hike with them, and it turned into 4 hours talking about the most beautiful and in-depth part of being a woman in a society where I want to speak, right? And so be willing to let go and make room for things that maybe don't make sense, that maybe look a little unpredictable, that maybe look a little hard at the same time in order to make room for beautiful things. Looking at my time because I gotta do that. So in my conclusion, finding your tribe, being intentional, making room and letting go. And again, being intentional with that space. So now, as you get ready to disperse from this place and the people you're walking across the stage with, I graduated with a class that wasn't technically my class, so I don't even remember who I sat next to at graduation. But I do remember the people who I got to see the moment I walked out of the field, right? I do remember the people who showed up to my brunch graduation party. I do remember the people who are still at my birthday to this day, or who remember without Facebook. That's how you know they're the real ones, Yeah, they have it on your phone. You didn't even have to check Facebook. You just knew. So those are the places, those are the people who are willing to take your mess in postgrad, the people who are willing to nestle through the hard conversations with you, and the people who are willing to continue to do life and be in community with you. I hope that was somewhat coherent. If you want to talk to me, I will be here after. I'm going to be taking notes on the financial part because, that's still a thing that I need to figure out. So thank you so much. Have a good night.
Good job. I will note that in regards to friends here on campus, sometimes I like to just people watch on Cougar Walk here, and I notice you amongst your friends, that this is a rather touchy-feely campus. You all tend to be very touchy-feely with your friends. And there's lots of different hugs, different types of hugs that I've seen. There's like the straight hug, super sweet, between two girls. There's the bear hug between the two guys that just are trying to crush each other. There's the side hug for that cute girl that you don't really know very well from Spanish 2. There's also this one that gets me, is a from behind hug, where you sneak up on somebody and you hug them from behind. You all find this totally appropriate and acceptable. I don't. If somebody comes up and hugs me from behind, I'm like, you better be careful or I will shank you with this giant straw from my Cougar Den smoothie. Just, what is going on back there? But not you all. Not you all. You find this totally acceptable. I've seen this happen multiple times. Somebody sneaks up, hugs from behind, and you all are like, oh my goodness, who is that? Who is that? Bradley! I'm like, how is this normal? But it is here, very touchy-feely campus. It got taken to a whole nother level. On Monday night, I came to check out what senior chapel was all about, and I just kind of came in the back. And before I knew it, I found that Pastor Koba had snuck up from behind and tried to spoon me. And I was like, this is too far, people, too far with the touchy-feely campus. I apologize. I'm seeing way too many parents out here, and it's really throwing me for a loop. I don't know if these jokes, they were really written for college students, not for parental ears, so I apologize. I did not do proper audience analysis. Okay, so I'm going to bring up our second speaker of the evening, and this is Dr. Courtney Davis. She is going to be speaking on the topic of work. She received her bachelor's degree from USC down the road. Oh, wow. Yikes. I meant UCLA. She received her undergraduate degree from UCLA. Okay, a little bit more. She got her graduate degrees from UC Santa Barbara. A couple. Her specialty is in the area of organizational communication. She also has an amazing family that I've been fortunate to become very good friends with. Her husband, Matt, her two kids, Luke and Theo, and she is a woman that does it all. So please give a big, warm welcome to Dr. Courtney Davis.
Good evening. Well, tonight I get to talk to you about your job, and generally let me start with telling you should probably get one. But in thinking about what kind of work to pursue and what to do once you have that job, I'd like to help you see how seeing work from an exilic perspective changes what you do and how you do it. So many of you know that I got an opportunity to speak at chapel a few weeks ago, and I spoke on the topic of God's good work. So let me remind to you a couple opportunities. Oh, I see you, DJ, and DJ's counting the number of times I'm going to say good work. Nailed. I totally nailed him. Okay, so 3 things from that talk, because what I want to do is build a little bit on that. So 1, we know that God is described as having worked, and we get an opportunity to participate with him in the redemption of the world because he worked and we are made in his image. 2nd, work is inherently good, and through our work, we get to participate in the redemption of the world. So we get to do that in for-profit work and nonprofit work, in paid work, in non-paid work, in vocational ministry, and marketplace ministry. But we get to work. And some of you got to reiterate this back to me, that quote from Dorothy Sayers was really powerful. She said, work must be good work before it can be God's work. 3rd, as I said in chapel 3 weeks ago, or a number of weeks ago, there are unreached people in both remote jungles and concrete jungles. And we are all called to go and make disciples of all nations. So let's build a little bit on that talk. And I want to share with you about how the doctrine of exile changes how we approach our work. So there's this major difference in the Old Testament between a Jerusalem perspective and a Babylonian perspective, or this perspective of exile in Babylon. Jerusalem represents this golden age of the Solomonic monarchy. Nations came to Jerusalem to marvel at its splendor and its beauty. There's an unparalleled sense of flourishing, national identity, security. God was at the center, and the people of God were part of that dominant culture. Their sense of identity was constantly reinforced, so much so that their Christian identity was sometimes taken for granted. Yet within one generation, civil war comes about, and this golden age of prosperity and this unparalleled shalom led to civil war and subsequent exile for both the northern and the southern kingdoms. So the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah forcibly removed from their homelands to live as aliens and strangers in a foreign and hostile land, a land called Babylon. So without land, king, or temple, God's people are displaced as a mere accumulation of beaten and uprooted individuals. In exile, they were the minority culture, and there was a constant awareness that they did not fit in. So we see this contrast, Jerusalem, Babylon, and I'd like to suggest to you that you've been trained in Jerusalem, and some of you have been trained for Babylon. So hear me out. Here at APU, I think you've had great opportunities to do at least two things. One, I hope you've grasped in your heart and your mind that your security, your status, and your purpose all come from Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, and nothing and no one else. Because when we're secure in our identity in Him, then our status is that we're known by Him, and our purpose is to make Him known. Second, I hope you've packed an intellectual suitcase to engage with the world through your work, that through your academic and your co-curricular training, that you are able to think critically about the world around you. I hope that you've invested in theories and practices and skills that equip you to be the most creative, diligent people in this world. Yes, in art and music and storytelling, but also in decision-making and product innovation and spiritual counseling and in bodily health and healing. Yes, some of you have been trained in this Jerusalem place called APU to work in other Jerusalem-like places where God is at the center and Christians comprise the dominant culture. I hope that this exilic perspective encourages you to equip and to send others out into Babylon, equipping them with this robust theology of work and encouraging them and spurring them on toward loving good deeds. But others of you have been trained in this Jerusalem place called APU to work in a Babylonian kind of place. See, you've been trained for workplaces that actually don't acknowledge Christ, that may not have a Christian worldview, that aren't populated by Christians. And I want you to hear very clearly, these are not places that we are meant to avoid. No, actually, Scripture tells us that in Jeremiah 29, 4-7, it says that God actually carried His people into exile. God carries us into dark places where Christ is not preeminent. And because of this, many people have said that the next big revival in the modern age will happen in our workplaces. Some of you have been trained here and are being prepared to work in that secular world. And when we embrace a gospel conviction to make disciples in all nations, then those secular concrete jungles and downtown cubicles are included. See, somehow we need to start thinking about those corporate America cubicles and start preparing to enter those concrete jungles in the same way that those entering remote jungles prepare. See, nobody goes out into the mission field and says, I hope that my identity is affirmed. Are you willing to sacrifice your reputation and your security and status of the worldly sort for the sake of the gospel? Like missionaries abroad, are you willing to go into workplaces for the sake of the gospel? Are you willing to stay in workplaces that don't always seek your good and don't worship your God? Will you do that for the sake of the gospel? Gosh, it can be so tempting to believe what the world believes, that our work should be the place where we find most of our fulfillment. And I think there's a Christian version of it where we start to believe that work is a place where we most fully live out our strengths and giftings and callings, so that we are sharing our gifts that He has given us with the world around us. But do you want to know how to be a true difference maker? One who takes the gospel into unreached people groups in the remote jungles and in the concrete jungles? The work of difference makers relies on your ability to trust your training. You've been trained in Jerusalem. When we are trained in Jerusalem, we have the capacity to be patient and present in Babylon. See, I'd like to introduce you to this idea that at work in Babylon, I don't want you to be surprised, but work will not always be satisfying. And supervisors aren't always interested in seeking your good and developing you personally, spiritually, professionally. You may not even believe that your first job out of college is a place where you are best reflecting your gifts and talents of the Lord. But if we believe that exile is a place where we are realigned with the purposes of God and with identity as God's people, then we can bring the hope of the world into that work with us Monday to Friday. See, trusting your training means seeing your work as an expression of your identity in Christ. Don't seek from work that which only God can provide: your security, your status, your purpose. When we know where our security, status, and purpose come from, then we're freed from others' opinions, including our supervisors. We're freed from others' evaluations of us. We stop expecting work to be the source of our identity, where we are most fulfilled. And when we know where our fulfillment comes from Jesus Christ alone, then that frees us to embrace this minority culture, not seeking to be dominant, but persevering faithfully in workplaces that don't seek our good, with the assurance of that which Christ promises. So let me leave you with a few practical thoughts as you trust your training. First, stand firm and do darn good work. Count it, DJ. My students hear me say this very often. You don't have to have position, you just have to have place. And in that place, you better do darn good work. Don't rely on a title or a company or employment in a Big 4 or top 5 firm to validate your identity and your worth. If you truly believe that your identity and your worth come from a crack in the floor, come from Jesus Christ's death and resurrection, then you can embrace your place. So there's an APU grad who actually is in my husband and my church small group, and she graduated from APU, and much to her disappointment, found herself in the last year working at Starbucks. But while the rest of her coworkers complained about her work, she sought to do the best darn work she could. See, she was joyful when she walked into her workplace. She made a darn good cup of coffee. She knew her customers' stories. She knew their orders. She went the extra mile to make things right, even in a Babylonian sort of workplace. Some of the world might look down on her and say, "What are you doing? You've got an AP college degree and you're working at Starbucks." I want to believe that she reflected God's glory in that place. You might not get your dream job right out of college. In fact, many of you don't even know what that dream is. And that's okay. Do something, almost anything. If we trust that God uses all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, then that's okay. Remember, you don't have to have position. You just have to have a place. And in that place, do darn good work. Second, when you do that darn good work to the glory of God, working as an expression of your sure identity in Christ, embracing that exilic perspective, then 1 Peter 3:15 says, "But in your hearts honor Christ, the Lord is holy. Always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect." If you're doing that darn good work, but you don't worship the gods of this world, people are going to ask you what your deal is. Except they won't say, "Excuse me, can you give me a reason for the hope that is in you?" No, you'll get something like, "Are you particularly religious?" Kind of like one of my former students did. Don't shy away from how the question is asked. Be bold to say that you love and follow Jesus Christ. Because if by God's grace you're doing the work in such a way that causes someone to ask you, they probably already know 85 things about you. How you do your work, how you treat others, what you do when you're stressed, how you spend your weekends, how you like your coffee, what is meaningful to you. 85 things. When they ask you if you're particularly religious or why you do the things the way that you do, be bold. Recognizing that if you've earned their respect, this 86th thing that is your faith will not likely negate the previous 85 things they already know about you when you do it with gentleness and respect. As part of this minority culture, as an exile, if you're doing things to the glory of God, you have the opportunity to be light bearers in some pretty dim places. I said earlier, exile is a place where we're realigned with the purposes of God and identity as God's people. When we understand workplaces from this exilic perspective, then, gosh, I think we can do a whole lot more. We're free to start to see our work not as something that we need to gain something from, but that something is an outflowing of what it is that we believe to be true. I think we can learn a lot from our brothers and sisters who serve as missionaries abroad, who also willingly embrace their place as exiles. Among many other things, they pray fervently for their context before they go. They pray fervently, continuously, once they arrive. And they assemble a sending team, those who pray on their behalf and encourage them to persevere in some really challenging things. Yes, pray for your workplaces before you leave here. Pray continuously for organizations that may or may not seek your good. And assemble your sending team, mentors and friends who can encourage you to remember that your security is in Christ alone, your status is that you are known by him, and your purpose is to make him known in dimly lit places. Thanks. Thanks for allowing a lot of us here at APU to be a part of your sending team. As you prepare to leave this Jerusalem place, I hope and pray that you know that your identity comes from Christ alone and not your work. And then you're able to work in both Jerusalem and Babylonian places with the gospel conviction to make disciples in all nations.
Awesome job. All right. Courtney Davis from Communication Studies. Get to share a department with her, and she is phenomenal, and it's really, hopefully you're taking notes from these speakers, because they're all going to come up here and have some really strong takeaways for you to think about. And part of that is the work life, and realizing that work life isn't always going to be fair. Resources are going to look different from different people. For example, do we have any business students in here? Business students? There they are. Business students. I was coming out of Wynn, I had just finished teaching my class. I walked by these two business students, and I heard one of them turn to the other one and say, "Isn't it weird that we're having a business class in the psychology building?" I was like, wow. So I just stopped him. I was like, what would be even more weird is if you were having a business class in the communication building. She was like, "Where's that?" I was like, exactly. Exactly. You entitled business students in your giant cougar statues, flat screen TVs, and marble bathrooms. Get over it already. The rest of us are slumming it over in Ronald bathrooms. Don't even have ceiling fans. It's been 2 decades since that restroom hasn't smelled like a number 2. Don't even get me started on the Rose Garden bathrooms. It's no coincidence that the Center for Student Action is right there at the Rose Garden. That way, when students are preparing to head off to some of these third world countries and enter the missions field, send them down to those restrooms. You need to get practice. Go into the bathroom with spiders, ants, and sweat, people. Too far? Is it too much? Okay. All right. They were like, this was really good. The speakers had incredible things, but then there was this weird guy that didn't even introduce himself till 45 minutes into the program. I'm Ryan Montague, and believe it or not, I do have a PhD. Just everybody is shocked and appalled right now. All right, we have some giveaways. Right now, we're going to start with some giveaways, and actually, there are 2 prizes we're going to give away right now at this moment. And the way we're going to give these away is that actually underneath your chair, there are 2 chairs that have vouchers underneath the chairs. If you want to take a look and see if you are one of the 2 chairs. It's pure chaos. There's also a lot of empty chairs. We didn't. Hey, there we go. There's 1, 2. All right, we got them. 2 vouchers. So what you can do is actually hang on to those for right now. At the end, you can take those over to the alumni table, which is located right over here. And they have a couple of prizes for you. One is a combined free cap and gown and a framed APU photo. And the other is a basket of alumni gear with a shirt and a mug. So take those over to the alumni table if you ended up with the voucher. If all you ended up with was some dried up gum, you can return that to facilities management for a hearty thank you. All right, we're going to keep this show rolling with our next speaker, which I have the honor of introducing Ryan Friedborg. And Ryan Friedborg is the executive vice president of the Bolton Company in Pasadena, which is an insurance broker. He has been making insurance awesome since 2005. He also has a bachelor's degree from communication here at APU, as well as a master's in organizational development. Please help me welcome Ryan Friedborg.
Making insurance awesome. That's something new for tomorrow. Hey, thanks for letting me be here tonight. I graduated here in 2000 and was shortly thereafter married. And we've been married now for 17 years. And part of this story involves my wife because it involves money. And relationships involve money. But let me start with the problem. And my goal is here tonight to provide solutions, to share my story, and hopefully you'll learn a lot through it and avoid some of the problem and some of the mistakes that I made in my 20s, which is really what I want to focus in on. So 1/3 of Americans have a written financial plan or a budget as you would know it. Only 1/3. That means 2/3 of us in the room, statistically, will not have a financial plan as we leave here and go into life after college. Fewer than half of Americans have $1,000 to their name. Average indebted household exceeds $16,000 in credit card debt. Credit card debt. A recent study from CareerBuilder revealed that 78% of American families live paycheck to paycheck. 78%, including 1 in 10 workers who make more than $100,000 a year. That's a real problem. And fortunately for us who have been given the opportunity and earned this opportunity to receive a great education and have mentors and events like this, those problems don't have to be our problems. But it's a function of our choices. It's a function of your choices. And the great news is most of you have the freedom to make different choices. Choices that will allow you to steer clear of a lot of what I just read. But it's your choice. What I want to do is give you some solutions and some practical tips. I'm just going to burn through them. So write some of them down. I hope they stick. I hope they mean something to you. And then I'm going to talk to you about my stories and the mistakes I made in my 20s financially. I'll start with this. Honor your God with your money. Honor God with your finances. Be a steward for Him. Write down your financial goals. Find a program that you can stick with that works. Find an app. Find a Dave Ramsey radio program or a class, something. Find a system that will help you stay on track. Track your progress monthly. Back to the budgeting process. I'd be curious how many of you, maybe a quick show of hands, write down the amount of money you earn each month, or write down the amount of expenses you incur each month. Anybody in the room? Yeah, good, more than I thought. I looked back in October of 1999 when I was right where you were, and I looked at it. I made $73 that month. And 3 of the transactions were $6 meal money from soccer trips that I didn't spend at In-N-Out Burger. I put it in my pocket and ate when I got home. I was going to get married soon. I was saving. My expenses that month were $1,100. I bought $700 worth of airline tickets to Cabo San Lucas for my honeymoon. Stuff that jumped out at me as I was preparing for this. I'd encourage you to count the cost of living. If you have aspirations of staying here in Southern California, figure out how expensive it is. This place is unlike a lot of the rest of the United States in terms of how expensive it is. Don't let that be a surprise to you. Figure out the cost of rent, the cost of insurance. Get a budget. Go through all those categories and start putting some numbers to paper. You're going to not want to be surprised by it in a few months. Figure out the cost of owning a home here in Southern California. Figure out what your down payment is here and realize that that could be the cost of a home somewhere else. Figure out the size of a deposit you're going to need for that first apartment, let alone first and last month's rent. Some other good advice would be make as many financial friends as possible as quickly as you can in life. People who are professionals that manage money, that service money, that do taxes, that pay taxes, that have experience with money. Accountants, CPAs, bankers, attorneys, insurance brokers, et cetera, et cetera. These are all people who can help you. I'd also tell you this, take advantage of your age. You may not understand this, but the 20s that you're in or headed into, I'm sure most of you are already there, is probably what I think the most important decade of your financial life. Because the secret ingredient to growing wealth is time. And the speed at which you can grow wealth requires your 20s. I've seen information that says it takes, at a typical savings rate, it takes about 19.6 years for somebody to save their first $1 million. It takes about 6 years for them to save their second $1 million. It takes 4 years for them to save their third $1 million. Do you see how the impact of speed and time matters? You're in your 20s, most important decade. Get started on this down this financial path. Take advantage of your age. Here's one thing that's really going to come out as I talk about my mistakes. When you choose your career and find yourself in your vocation, be cognizant, be aware of your compensation structure, and choose wisely. This is probably my most important point, I think. It's made the biggest difference in my life. Choose your compensation structure wisely. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. Read the book of Proverbs. Take a chapter every day. If you want to know more about money, learn more about saving, God's plan for your money life, read the book of Proverbs. A couple more. Deferred gratification. No one likes this topic. But deferring gratification, if you can figure out how to do this in your 20s, it'll be easy for the rest of your life. If you can defer gratification for the next 5, 7, 10 years of your life, I guarantee you, you will live a better life than you ever thought possible. And you will live and have advantages that most people don't experience. Find a way to discipline yourself, to be compelled by living a different decade in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s. We live a long life. This is a marathon, Lord willing. Defer that gratification wait. Save for another decade. Take care of your credit score. That's specific for you. Take care of your credit score. I'll summarize this to say, make as much money as you can through your vocation. Give away as much money as you can, as your heart's led, as God leads you. Give away as much as you can. Save as much money as you can. Take care of your needs. Defer the rest. I want to also tell you, read a book called Your Money or Your Life. It was recommended to me by a math teacher here at APU, and it put me on a path of tracking for 7 years with my wife every penny we earned for 7 years, every penny we spent for 7 years, and it made all the difference, and we still enjoy the benefits of it today. There's no denying it. When I left this place, I had an ambitious goal of earning $100,000 in income by the time I was 30 years of age. I'm blessed to say that today we have the ambitious goal of giving more than $100,000 away every year. And that's to the glory of God. I share that to now tell you some of my mistakes. My wife and I got married very young. We got married February 19th, a couple weeks before March 2nd's FAFSA deadline, so that we could combine our incomes, which was like $8,000 for the year, rather than our parents' incomes. And we got Cal grants, we got Pell grants, we got Dean scholarships, I got soccer scholarship, et cetera, et cetera. Well, here's our first big blunder. We took loans that we didn't need, and we invested it in the stock market. And it was the year 2000, the tech bubble. It got us. I was victim, I don't know how many. We lost. We took about $26,000 in student debt. We didn't need to take it. And we put it in the market and we lost it. Don't make my mistake. I went to work for the Home Depot. It was my first full-time job in human resources. I was at my final job interview. Lenny Cavalluzzi gave me the application. He said, Ryan, we like you. Fill out the application. We'll get you on your way. Everything's going to be fine. Make sure you fill out every box on the application. I flipped to the back side, and there was a box that was just staring at me, and it said, desired rate of pay. I hadn't done the research. I hadn't talked to anybody within the organization. I didn't know what to put in that box. But I didn't want to let Lenny down. So what did I do? I calculated in my head what I currently made in my part-time job. And I said, I'm going to give myself a $2.50 an hour raise. So I wrote in $17.50 an hour. Lenny came back into the room, looked it over, stopped right at that box. Said, would you be happy at $17.50? I said, I believe I would. He said, well, then we've got a deal. You're hired. Congratulations, your first full-time job after college. I was pretty excited. I think you'd be pretty excited as well. That's a good raise and a good starting salary in the year 2000. 2 weeks into the job, I'm in human resources. I gain access to all the compensation data within the organization. You know what I learned? The starting pay for the position was $18 an hour. In the, you know how there's like a starting range and then a mid-range and then a senior range? It went all the way up to $30 an hour. What was my mistake? I didn't have a conversation. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't negotiate. I didn't ask for time to talk about it or think about it or learn more. Don't make my same mistake. I spent 3 years at the Home Depot living with that mistake, and here's why. I got promoted twice. I got a total of 3 raises in those 3 years. Every single raise reminded me of my mistake because it was a percentage based on $17.50 an hour. See how that works? Gather information and help yourself out, help your future out as well. You're trading your time and your life for your vocation. Get paid to do it. Here's one other thing, and I think for time's sake I got to finish up. I left APU Also, working as a part-time youth pastor at a church in Pasadena, my compensation wasn't a free place to live. They gave us an apartment. We stayed there for 7 years. We paid ourselves rent the entire time. 600 square foot. We were deferring, but it worked for us. And it was a great experience serving in the church, but I left having this internal struggle for years. Can I serve God effectively in the marketplace, or do I have to go into full-time ministry? And what should I do? Should I go back to seminary? Should I go into business school? What should I do? It was at a men's breakfast at a church gathering one morning. I think I was 24 years old. Dallas Willard, he presented and he spoke, and he gave me this illustration that just hit home for me. He said, God cares as much about the plumber working on the broken, leaky pipe, who's doing his work unto God's glory. He cares as much about the plumber working on that pipe as he does the pastor preparing the sermon for Sunday morning's message. And for me, it was like wind in my sails, freedom for me to pursue a career in the marketplace, to serve God and take Him wherever I go. And I would just encourage you, whether you're going to be a school teacher, whether you're going to be an accountant, a pastor, a nurse, pick a vocation. You're going to serve God effectively if you choose to, if you pursue Him with your career. I've found a way to do that. I pray that you will as well. I'll close with this, I promise. This one I've got to give you. I left APU with this advice just ingrained in my heart from a business professor who said, love what you do. Don't worry about the money will follow. Love what you do, the money will follow. That in spirit is good advice. I've come to learn it's wrong. And here's why. If you go to work at the Home Depot, you're going to get raises, and it's going to be paid by performance to a degree. But after 3 years at the Home Depot, I went to work for the County of Los Angeles in corporate HR. And at the County of Los Angeles, I got my starting pay, and every year you were guaranteed a 5.5% raise for 5 years. And then at the end of that 5 years, you'd get on to another track if you got promoted, and then you'd have 5 more years of 5.5% raises. And in the county system, there's 90,000 employees. And here's what I came to learn. If I was the best employee in the whole county, and I loved my job and my service more than anyone else in the entire county, my compensation, my pay, was exactly the same as long as I showed up, whether I was the best employee or the worst employee, whether I loved my job or hated my job, my compensation was going to be the same. Here's my point. There's a lot of different compensation models out there. You need to be cognizant of the one you're choosing and make sure it lines up with how you're wired and how you're motivated. I'm a very competitive individual. I played sports here in college. I grew up in a family that was very competitive. I wanted to be paid in correlation to my performance and my contribution. And the county did not offer that to me. So just be aware of that. I'm absolutely wanting you to love what you do. But just understand, pay for performance and pay for attendance are two different things. So be aware of that as you go forward in your job. Thank you.
Man, second to all of that, making me just reflect on my whole life, financially, which I'm coming out of a dark place right now, people. If we were up here talking about all our financial mistakes, we'd be here for a couple more years. We all have a lot of mistakes. For those of us that are speaking, that I would encourage you, there's an amazing thing. Get connected with somebody that you can ask them about their mistakes and ask them what they wish they would have known when they were your age in regards to money and finances and work and family and relationships and all these things. Take advantage of that, and you'll be prepared to not make the same mistakes. and start out ahead of where they were. So some amazing things to walk away from that with. And I'm going to go ahead and keep this thing rolling and bring up our next speaker, Jackie Roth. She is going to be revisiting this topic of home and putting a spin on the topic of home. She is also an executive vice president of the Bolton Company, along with Ryan. She does fundraising for APU's East Africa Scholarship Fund, and she also holds a bachelor's degree in communication studies from right here at Azusa Pacific University. Please give a warm welcome to Jackie Roth.
Home. Home is the place where one lives permanently, especially as a member of a family or a household. Also defined as a place where something flourishes. So what I'd like to suggest is that home is not house. Houses can be washed away, burned down, swept away, melted down, like the world around us, right? We can see what's happening with homes. With houses. Home, I'd like to redefine. I think home is richer and greater than brick and mortar because I believe that home is in us. I mean home here. This is the permanent part of home that I'm talking about. So I learned that people don't remember anything you say unless you make an emotional connection with them, and usually that happens through storytelling. So thanks for the stories, other speakers, because I'm going to remember those things. But I want to tell you a story about home for me soon after I left APU and what that looked like. It was 2002, and it was my first married Christmas. And my husband and I had just gotten married in August, and we talked about, okay, what's it going to look like with our first Christmas? Because we really want families to come together. You know, now that we're married, we should host. We should be those people that, you know, get everybody to come together, and everybody will get along, and we'll play cards, and it will be awesome. My husband's family was in a different place at the time, and gosh, expectations. His parents had just gotten divorced, and in August when we got married, we were on our knees begging them to just please come to the wedding, keep it peaceful, sing the songs, be there, just support us, do this with us. And we got through the wedding without any fighting, and that was a praise. And then came Christmas, and nobody really wanted to come because there was all this tension, and it was this like, well, they don't really get along, and then it's uncomfortable for us because what do we say? Because they're over there like not talking to each other, and then what does that do for our side of the family? And so you can see the tension, right? So my husband and I say, what are we going to do? How are we going to get them here? And I said, just promise wine. I don't know. We had terrible wine taste at the time because we were 22. So I said, okay, mom, dad, sisters, we will feed you, we will give you beverages, we give you as much space to sleep as we can provide in a 700 square foot apartment in Glendale. So we begged them to come. And it was a really hot Christmas Day in Glendale. You wanted to have that picturesque, like be in a sweater and jeans and boots, but you were in like shorts and a tank top and sweating. And we packed into this 700 square foot apartment, and we prayed. Man, my husband and I were praying, God, bless this day, because nobody really wants to be here for your birthday. So people come, and we open presents, and we eat, and we drink, and we open more presents, and we don't play cards or games, but we had some awkward moments, and we kind of dealt with those awkward moments. And we came together. And it required patience, inviting, sharing, feeding. It required a safe place. And so when I talk about home being permanent in us, I'm saying the safe place is here. The safe place is there. You offer a safe place to the people you interact with. And that is so much bigger than a house. That is so much bigger than a structure. So redefining home here is safety you take with you out into the world. My second point is mind your home. And mind your home, I'm talking about recreating home, because if we could create safe places for people, I think they would tell us the truth. And I learned after college, man, a lot of people don't tell the truth. Truth is hard to come by. And a lot of people do this thing where it's like, how you doing? Oh, good. How you doing? Good, fine. Yeah, okay, all right. Like, nobody wants to say, I'm actually not great right now. I lost my job. This is happening. My mom is sick. This is happening. This isn't great. Because telling the truth is hard, and sometimes it's not pretty, and sometimes you just don't want to be that person that has problems. But when you have a safe place and somebody has built safety into that relationship, you get to say, it's not great right now. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to tell the truth about it, and I'm going to live a more honest life because of that. So create safe places and create spaces for people to come as they are, as who they are, and as where they are in life. My second story is a story about, a little bit about work. I was 24, and I was so determined to climb a corporate ladder, and I was dogged in my determination to prove to this Fortune 500 company that I worked for that I am worthy, and I can do this work, and I deserve that title and that promotion. And so I was working a lot of hours, and I wasn't tending to my tribe and my people and my flock and the people that have lifted me up. And a good friend of mine, she was my college roommate all throughout my 4 years here, she said, you're not really making time for people. And I was like, I'm busy. I'm working. I'm doing something. And sure enough, so that didn't go well, that conversation. And life happened, and it was a weekday. I don't remember the day of the week. But my husband, Fed, and I were in the kitchen, and the phone rang, and it was my parents. And the call went something like this. No. We needed to tell you the news. He's going to be fine. We don't know the stage yet. No. We'll tell you more about the diagnosis later. No, don't worry. Whatever you do, go to work tomorrow. So we found out my dad had cancer, and it was serious. And I broke down in the kitchen and then said to my husband, we just got to go to work tomorrow. We got to stay focused. So we both went to work, and the next day I was useless, couldn't stay focused, wasn't productive, and I said to my boss at lunchtime, can I just grab you for a second? And I told him, so my dad has a diagnosis and it's cancer. I guess it's not good, but I can stay here. I'm good, I'm fine. And he said, oh my gosh, go home. What are you doing here? Like, go process this, go take a minute. And I thought, what am I gonna do? I'm not going to go home to an empty house. I sent my husband to work today. So I called up the friend that said, you've not been great at community lately. And I called up my other dear friend, and we met, and we sat on, I can still see the light in the room and picture the moment. We sat on her couch, and we cried, and we cried, and we cried, and we talked about the fear of losing our parents and how hard it is to have aging parents, and how, man, we want to prove ourselves in this world right now, but tending to people matters. And we stopped what was happening, and we did home that day. We had a safe place. We put our guards down, and we said, this is my life right now, and it's kind of hard, and I need a place where I'm safe enough to tell my truth. My last point is remain. And I was in church. One of my pastors preached recently and said, John 15:9, as the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Remain in my love. And as I was preparing for this talk on home, that resonated, and I felt like that was for this group. Because to remain in the love of our parent, our God, it transforms us. And it means we can live differently, because we don't have to run around going, do you approve? Am I good enough? Am I awesome enough? Am I smart enough? Do I make enough money? You can walk into a room and go, I am beloved by God Almighty, and that is enough. So this verse resonated for this group because I think if we really believed and we really remained in the love of God, it would transform us. And we would do home here, and we would say, I want to know you, and I want to see you. And I'm not saying go vulnerability everywhere, but find your safe places. And be that safe place, because God is in that place. So remain. And Brennan Manning is one of my favorites. And he says this: define yourselves radically as one beloved by God. This is the true self, and every other identity is illusion. So my challenge to you, seniors, is go out of this place and be homemakers. That's it.
So I'm going to bring our next speaker up to the stage here. This is Ryan Hartwig speaking on the topic of church. And Dr. Ryan Hartwig is from the Communication Studies Department. He's the chair of that department. Also plays a role in several other committees around campus. He's a dear friend of mine, and he has also written a book, Teams That Thrive, which has been picked up and utilized all across the country by senior leaders at churches and organizations. He has extraordinary experience in church leadership, in small group work, and he is just a really great mentor and dear friend of mine. So please help welcome to the stage Ryan Hartwig.
17 and a half years ago, I graduated from college. April 2000, I walked across the stage with my friends and we walked into adult life. We didn't call it adulting back then, we just called it growing up, living life. But I realized that a big part of adulting is making decisions, important and difficult decisions. And since that time, I've made a lot of important decisions, and so have my friends. We made decisions about who should we marry and what job should we take, and should we move back home or should we move far away, or when should we have kids and how many should we have. And I always knew, though, that those were important decisions. But there was one decision that I've realized over the years that was a really big, important decision that I actually didn't think about when I graduated from college. In fact, I realize it's one of the most important decisions that I have to make, and probably that you will have to make too. And that's, where will you go to church? Or maybe better said, what church will you become a part of? What church will you belong to? You see, what I didn't know then, but I know now, is that church would be this place where I'd meet amazing friends to do life with. And my friends, I had amazing, precious friends. I love my friends. I still get together with my crew of 6 guys once a year, but they've moved all over the country and all over the world, and I don't get to see them every day. I need other friends. I now know that church is where my selfishness and my short-sightedness and my narrow-mindedness would be exposed and lovingly confronted. I now know that church is where I'd learn to give and serve beyond what was comfortable. I now know that church is where I'd meet old people who would become trusted mentors and sponsors. And I now know that church is where my family would find community and friendship, and a crew with whom to do life together. Yes, what church you choose to become a part of is one of the most important decisions you will make as you leave APU and as you begin to adult. And so I want to share with you for just a few minutes 3 kind of key ideas to hopefully help you consider the role of church in your post-grad life. So number one is this, and it's a strong statement. Forgive me, it's a strong statement. I'll back it up, though. Number 1, you need to be part of a local church. This is not optional. This is required. Now, I know a lot has been said about this, and you can go out to the internet and you can get lots of people's opinions on this. And you're going to find many folks out there who are going to tell you that you can connect with God on your own, or you can connect with God in a house with a few of your key friends, or you can connect with God while you're all alone on a mountain, or through your work. And they're right. They're absolutely right. But you're also going to find a lot of other folks who are going to tell you that so much of what you most need, community and accountability, and submission to authority and a realization that life isn't all about you is most readily found in a biblical church. And they're right too. And that's why I believe that while you can connect with God anywhere at any time, that's not the sole point of church. I'd even go so far that the greater gift of the church is learning to submit yourself to a group of people that God will use beyond your imagination to encourage you and to challenge you to become more and more the man or more and more the woman that God has designed for you to be. Let me give you 5 quick reasons why I say you have to become part of a local church. Number 1, because you need Christian friends. It's the same as maybe your parents told you when you were a kid. I tell my kids this, girls, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Right? The people that you hang with, the crew that you run with is going to determine more about the future trajectory of your life than probably anything else. Be wise with whom you link up. And now for a lot of you, you're going to move out. You're going to go get a job over here. You're going to go here. You're going to go here. One of the quickest ways to make friends is to find a good local church. I mean, I guess you could like bar hop. I guess you could kind of go hang out in the parks. I mean, I guess you could try those things out, but go to a local church and watch what happens. Number 2, because you can accomplish much more in a group of friends than you can alone. I'm involved in something that's very exciting right now with our church friends. Some friends and I, we're trying to find a way to launch 25 families in our church that will take on foster children or adopt in the next 5 years. And to cultivate a community of folks in our church that's ready to actually care for those families and for those kids. There is no way that any of us could do that alone. We can do that because of us coming together. The third reason is because you need to learn to sacrificially serve others. You see, the church is this gift to show you how to love people and how to serve people who are different than you. See, much of our lives, we live as though we are the center, we are the point. And one of the things I hate about the way we do college is that we kind of dupe you into thinking that it's all about you. Because whatever you need, whatever you want, we're going to try to run around you and support you and give you the help that you need. And I think we start to think that it's all about us. But you see, when you go to church and you hang out with old people or with babies, many of whom don't have a whole lot to kind of offer your millennial self, you learn to sacrificially serve others. Number 4, because you need to be challenged. You see, good teaching will challenge not only your beliefs, but your behaviors. You'll be challenged to submit to godly exhortation in biblical teaching. And by the way, if it's good teaching, it is necessarily going to rub you the wrong way every once in a while. In other words, you're going to sit there and you'll be like, I don't like that. I don't believe in that. Why is that guy or why is that girl talking like that? I don't like it. And by the way, if you don't always agree with what the pastor is saying, that's not a sign that you need to bounce. Maybe that's a sign that you actually need to be there and you need to be challenged. And number 5, because many of you need to find healing in community. You know, in a room this size, and I'm actually one of them. I'm a pastor's kid. I grew up in a pastor's home. My dad is kind of a classic burn pastor story. I've been hurt by the church. And probably a lot of you in the room have felt that too, or have been hurt by church people. I love what Pastor Kerry Newhoff says. He says, a wound created in community is best healed in a community. Some of you have wounds. Some of you have taken on these things in church context, in Christian context. Don't run away from the church, run to the church and let God heal that wound. I would submit to you that the best way to reap those benefits is through your engagement in a local church. And here's what I mean real quick by a local church. Okay, number 1, I mean it's local. It's local, right? It's like a church where you live. And just because you love Judah Smith or Matt Chandler or Rick Warren, right, or Stephen Furtick or Albert Tate, unless you live and you can go to church where they pastor, they can't be your pastor. I like to listen to those guys too, but I need a pastor who knows me and who I submit to. I'd even discourage you from driving too far to church. The further you get away, the harder it is to engage. It's hard to go in, especially in this kind of place like this in LA, where traffic is a nightmare. I went to Riverside today. Oh my goodness, okay? And secondly, it needs to be a church. It needs to be a church. Listen to me real quick. It needs to be a church. You see, when you look at the New Testament, you see instructions on how to do church. And here's what you see. A true church is a place where the Word of God is accurately preached, where the ordinances of baptism and the Lord's Supper are rightfully administered, and where church discipline is exercised. All of which requires, obviously, some sort of biblically qualified church leadership. So if that's what a church is, sorry, this might hurt for a second. But your Bible study with your pals or your worship session in your apartment, that's not church. Do that too. Have fun with it. That's awesome. But be a part of a true, legitimate local church. You see, because when you submit to that church, God is going to do amazing things in you. So number one, you need to be part of a local church. Got it? Number two, and the last two are going to go much faster. Number two, be choosy, but about the right things. Be choosy, but about the right things. I mean, hopefully right now you're like, okay, fine, I'll do it. I'll at least give it a try. But now, how do I know which one? There's lots of churches out there. How do I pick? What should you consider? Let me give you a couple questions to ask. The first one, do they serve great coffee, donuts, or bomb breakfast burritos? I'm kidding, okay? That doesn't really matter, okay? But here's some other ones, okay? So how seriously do they take the Bible? Do they actually preach the Bible? There's a lot of churches that don't preach the Bible. How seriously do they take biblical theology? Listen to the preaching and check their beliefs. Think, how central is the gospel in preaching? Or is this just a bunch of self-help therapy? Like, do they think that you can actually figure out how to solve your own problems? Or do they teach you that you need Jesus to solve your problems? Is the structure of leadership biblical? Do they equip people to grow spiritually? Will they help you cultivate godly friendships? Does this, and probably my favorite is, does this local body have a need that by God's enabling I can meet? In other words, can I contribute? You see what doesn't make the list? What doesn't make the list is the pastor hip and edgy and have an awesome podcast. What doesn't make the list, honestly, is the worship. And I get that the worship needs to kind of fit your flavor. I get that. But I just want to encourage you, don't make that be an ultimate thing. And as you do this and as you go search, remember, you're never going to find a perfect church. And even if you did, the moment you walk in, you know you're going to ruin it, right? Because none of us are perfect. And so be choosy, but about the right things. And then number three is dive in, then stay for a while. Dive in the pool and then swim around for a while. Let me give you a few tips for this. This is like the most basic. Number one, go weekly. Okay? Build your schedule around church. Church is not one of these things that you do unless something better comes along, which I realize is how you've lived the last 4 years of your life. Sure, I'll do that unless something better comes along. Sorry, you didn't like that. You offended that I said that to you. That's cool, okay? But church is not one of those things. I know you've got other stuff, but schedule church. Find a place to serve. Wrangle kids, park cars, hand out bulletins, whatever. Find some place where you can be engaged and you can hang out with people. I love it when I go to my church and I see young people helping in the kids ministry. I just think it's amazing. Or working with seniors and helping to serve them as they have their Sunday school class or whatever. Plug into group life and be a leader. Many of you here, how many of you have been involved in D groups during your time here? A small group leader of some sort. Okay, every one of you that's raised your hand, you just volunteered. Okay, that's what happens, okay? You be a group leader. Volunteer to lead a life group or a growth group or a home group or whatever it is that your church has. Go ahead and put yourself out there. There's this funny kind of thing. I think oftentimes we don't get involved in those sort of groups because but how am I going to know if I'm going to like the people? Check this. If you hang out with people long enough, funny thing happens. You actually start to like them. You actually start to like them. And I hope that maybe you would engage in some groups with people that you don't know. People who are in different life stages than you. People with different backgrounds than you. People who look different than you. And you hang around long enough and you're like, you know what? You are special in my life. I want to encourage you to be careful to not say too often that you're too busy. I get it. We're all busy. But every one of us has the same number of minutes and hours in every day. Please be wise with yours. Make some time for church. And then I hope that you'll stay a while. You see, there's one of these things in life, and all the folks who've lived for a little while know the benefits of roots, right? Like once you start to develop some roots and you're like, wow, this is amazing. I remember for us, we moved here 6.5 years ago or so. We moved here. And I remember our first year was a miserable year. I think we went to Disneyland like 35 times. We got the annual pass, don't worry, okay? Because we had no friends. I remember Super Bowl Sunday coming, no invites. We went home, we got some wings, we watched the Super Bowl, we were super sad, we had no friends. A few years later, we ended up adopting this little guy, and we did an adoption party, first year birthday party. And we did it in our backyard, and at one point, I grabbed Matt, and I went and stood on a chair, and I said, y'all, when we moved here, through tears, I said, y'all, when we moved here, we didn't know anybody. We had no family here, no nothing. And our first year was really hard because we didn't have friends. But look what God has done. Like, look at y'all eating tacos in my backyard and supporting us through this journey. Like, yes, this is what church does. And some of y'all are going to move to places that you don't know anybody. Go get involved in the church and watch what happens a couple years later in your proverbial backyard. And watch the things that God does. I love what the writer of Hebrews chapter 10 says. He says this, let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. You see, I'm convinced that the local church is the best way to do that. So I hope that you'll make church a priority. I hope that you'll be choosy, but about the right things. And I hope that you'll dive in and stay for a while. It'll be one of the best and the most important decisions you'll ever make. Thanks.
All right, seniors, are you glad that you came out here tonight or what? There you go. Getting some major points to walk away with. And you're witnessing some pretty incredible things. Ryan Hartwig just gave that entire talk in a single breath, which is amazing. Once he gets rolling, people. I will say on that topic of church and faith, you all are so blessed to be at a place like APU and get the faith integration that you get and the experience with chapel and all these different amazing speakers. Because I know that for me personally, I went to public universities and I grew up in a very lukewarm Catholic home where we just did like the memorized prayers from the Catholic Church. I was in my 20s before I knew that people just like did out loud improvisational praying. Like that was intimidating. I still remember the first time I heard my dad pray out loud that wasn't a memorized prayer. It was at my mom's 60th birthday party. And he gets into this prayer over the meal, and he cuts loose from our typical Our Fathers and some of the other standards, and he goes out on a limb, just tries to wing it. This did not go well, folks. My mom was 60, it was her birthday party, and this is how his prayer started. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for giving us Carol for one more year. Well, immediately all of our eyes just open. We're like, what is happening? She's 60. She's not turning 98. Dear Lord, let us get to 99. This would be 60. She's turning 60. Thank you for giving us Carol for one more year. Thank you. Bless our family. Bless our food. Goodbye. He literally said goodbye. Just hang up the phone with God. Goodbye. If you want to throw some people off, just do that the next time you're praying with that D group. I'd be happy to close out this prayer for us. Goodbye. All right. I'm going to bring up our final speaker, and then after this speaker, we've got the grand prizes that are coming out as well. So stick around for that afterwards. But our final speaker here is Pastor Albert Tate. He was wise enough to bring his fan club. But he is a local pastor at Fellowship Monrovia. He originally started pastoring at Sweet Home Church in Pearl, Mississippi, then to Lake Avenue Church in Pasadena, He has been preaching the gospel to people of all ages and all races. He is married to the love of his life, La Rosa Tate, who he calls his gift, God's gift of amazing grace in his life, which if you've met her, he outkicked his coverage. It's fair to say. He has 3 beautiful children, Zoe, Bethany, and Isaac. He serves on the board of trustees here at APU as well as the Fuller Youth Institute. Please give a big round of applause to Pastor Albert Tate.
All right. I wasn't sure, but I got up close. Those pants are pink, right? Got it. Great. All right. Know what we're going to put on the board agenda next time I'm at the board. This communications guy, Ryan. Let's pray. Dear Lord, goodbye. No. All right. So so I'm getting text message after text message after text message. The MC of the program gets up and they take the break, and I know that during this break is when I have to go and get mic'd up. And I know that this will be my last opportunity to take a break before the moment arrives. I'm literally walking back and I'm going through these hallways, and I go to the bathroom, and then I come back and I pass by Shauna Niequist and Brene Brown, who just got off the stage. She's taking her mic off, and I'm passing by her. I look over and I see on the monitor during the break, they've cleared the auditorium because Common is a surprise guest. And he's about to do Glory, and no one knows that he's there, so they're secretly sound checking him. And my session comes after the break. It's an audience of about 10,000 people in this room, but there are about 300,000 people watching all across the world. It's the Global Leadership Summit, and I am about to speak to the largest Christian audience in the world. It's the largest Christian gathering in the world. This is about to set my resume off. I mean, like, this is it. Like, you don't need a resume after this. You just put this on it, and bam, you can give away $100,000. I'm curious, though, who you give it to and how can I get on that list, by the way. I'm just praying that in Jesus' name. Bye-bye. This is something, my nerves are undone. I'm palms are sweaty. But I just realized you got to lose yourself. Never let it go. You only got one shot. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. You gotta lose. No, okay. I know that this moment will mark me. People are texting, praying for you. And I prepared for this moment. Like, I had thought about what this moment would feel like and what it would be like. But it was none of those things. This would be the most significant day for my resume, but it would turn out to be the most painful day of my life. We got on the cruise the week before to celebrate vacation, and was going to come back and spend the week preparing and then go to Chicago for the Global Leadership Summit. While we were on the cruise, we got a call. My wife's sister, who was in her early 30s, got rushed to the hospital. She had a blood clot. The signal was bad because we're literally on the ship going out. Finally, we get a call back. We pick up a signal long enough to hear. She didn't make it. I'll never forget that night in the cabin with my wife. The tears. We had to get off the ship, get taken back to the land, flew to Mississippi. So I'm sitting in the Global Leadership Summit, and this is the most significant mark on my resume, but it feels nothing like I thought it would, because just 5 days ago, I had to stand and give the eulogy of my sister. And standing over her body, having to eulogize her, speak well of her, changed everything. So now I'm at the Leadership Summit, and all I'm thinking is 300,000 people waiting, and all I can do is say, how can I get this over with so I can take my wife home and hold her and we can cry together? Because what mattered a week ago just doesn't matter the same today. As you round third and head for home, as you finish your time here at APU, can I just tell you, building a great resume matters. Investing in your resume is significant. Making the right choices, doing the hard work so that you can have a great resume is significant. But what a shame for you to have a great resume and not live a beautiful eulogy. What I realize is that I don't want to live my life for my resume. I want to live for my eulogy. Because I dare not come to be morbid, but one day someone's going to have to stand over you and hopefully by God's grace speak well of you. And can I just tell you what we won't do is ask for your resume. You know what we won't do? Talk about your years that you worked in the office building and what you accomplished with the spreadsheets in the cubicle. That's not what matters in that moment. It's not what we do. One of the things is my job as a pastor is I get called in those moments. I get called in the funeral. And can I just tell you, one of the hardest things in the world for my job is when I have to go in and do a funeral. I'll never forget, it was a 21-year-old girl who died. And I watched in the church lobby as we were planning the service, them frantically trying to find glimpses of spiritual significance in her life. As they're trying to tell me, because I don't know her, it's a large church, and I'm the pastor for hire, and they're trying to give me something to say that has some type of eternal significance, and they couldn't find anything. One of the most painful visions is to see a mother trying to search for spiritual significance in her daughter's life, trying to help the pastor whose job is to eulogize her. your hours worked as the one who does the eulogizing doesn't matter. Means nothing in that moment. What matters is the life that you lived. And not just that you lived, but you lived with an eternal perspective so that you might have kingdom significance. Whew, that was good. Somebody ought to tweet that or something. That you live with an eternal perspective so that you might have kingdom significance. I guess I'm saying all that to say this one thing. You can gain the whole world. You can leave here and kill it. The reality is, most of you will. You're just good like that. You're going to leave here and you're going to kill it. You're going to land the job. Some of you got the internship that you're praying for right now, the internship went well and you're hoping they're going to offer you a job. Some of you, you're going to get it. You're going to kill it. Some of you are going to suck miserably. Come on, and y'all know who they are too, don't you? You can point the one in the class, you can be like, yes, that's Jimmy, he gonna suck. He's gonna suck. When they're at graduation and his parents, they're gonna be the ones most excited, and you're gonna be thinking, does his parents know that he sucks? Like, does his parents know how bad it is? He has been an idiot for 4 years. Look at his mama, she's crying. She is proud of him. Can you believe that? All of you know exactly who I'm talking about. You know them. And can I just warn you and tell you, they're going to be freaking millionaires. And you're going to hate them. Like, look at Jimmy. I guess what I'm saying is be prepared. You can leave here and really win. What grabs me about that verse is he says, what profit a man to gain the whole world? Think about that for a minute. He gained the world. She gained the world. You got the job. You got the boo. You got the benefits of having a boo. You know what I'm talking about. Come on. You know you were there. You could, no guilt. You know what I'm saying? You don't feel bad at all. Come on. Tell the truth. Hey, it's been a long 4 years. Come on. It had some ups and some downs, but you made it. Kinda, not really. But you get the job and you get the confidence, and it doesn't take a relationship or a marriage to seal your identity. You're confident in who you are, and you just got it going on, and you good. Regardless of what success looks like for you, can I just tell you, don't be surprised if you get it. Don't be surprised if you get it. You'll win. You can win. You got this. Here's the problem. You can win and still lose. That's the thing that I didn't see coming. You can gain the world, you can get it all, but still lose your soul. Don't leave this place a passive, lazy Christian that makes your spirituality optional. Don't leave here with a great resume, but live a terrible eulogy. You can gain the world, but my brothers, my sisters, don't you lose your soul. Grab a hold to the thing that matters most. An eternal perspective, kingdom significance, and that's only found in Jesus. For his glory. Bye-bye.
Amazing lineup of speakers. Hope you've been taking notes because they have given you a lot to think about and to take with you on this night. And I do have one as kind of before I get to these grand prizes, I have one confession that I need to just get off my chest. I am Jimmy. I'm Jimmy. Minus the millions, I'm Jimmy. I have a PhD, people. The only reason they brought me up here was to show that anything is possible. It's grit. It's grit. So I'm going to bring up Phil Brazel, and he is going to take it from there.
Hi, I'm Phil Brazel, and we're just so happy that you're here. I remember 2 years ago sitting in my office with Dr. Ryan Hartwig thinking about some of these things, and another colleague, Callie, who was here, and it's just so great to have this night come to fruition because I think it's so important in your journeys, and just so grateful for that. And I work in the Office of Alumni Engagement, that is one of the people that put this on, and I want to just acknowledge briefly before we close Jenna Calamusa, who planned this entire event. She's over there, and she put a lot of time and effort into this. But briefly, just want to share about a resource for you all that is up here on the screen. This is APU Connect, which is an online platform that has over 4,500 alumni that are on it that want to be on your behalf as you're going through this transition. And this represents alumni that from different fields, different industries, and we invite you to be upon that. The next slide will show. It offers a directory where you can look up alumni based on the industry that they're in, based on the major that they studied. We've had a lot of students utilize this in the years past. We had one student plan his spring break trip around this and found all alumni in the Bay Area that are working in different companies, reached out to them. They have their personal email addresses on there. They share what they're willing to do, if they're willing to open doors at their companies, review your resume, be a mentor, talk through how they use their major and the industry that they're in and the field that they're in. And so this year, we'll be inviting all seniors to join this platform during their senior year, so you can use this as a resource to connect with alumni that want to be on your behalf. You will get an email in the next week that will explain details about how you can join this and utilize this to maximize on the relationships, because like Ariel and Jackie and Ryan, who came back here, that there are alumni who want to be engaged with you and involved in your journey as well. And thank you to these alumni. Can we thank these alumni for coming back and sharing and giving of their time to APU and to your lives. And so I know that I'm going to be closing this time, but bringing up Dr. Wallace here, and his heartbeat is this. He cares about you all, your journeys, and this transition, and this is really birthed from his desire to see this happen. Welcome, Dr. John Wallace.
Yeah, so Phil, I want to thank you and your team for this evening. This is exactly where we were hoping this would go. I want to thank our faculty and alumni. You are some of the people I respect most, and thank you for investing in our students. Ryan, even with your pants, I'm okay with that. So a long time ago, after I graduated, the year after I graduated, somebody gave me a book that was already out of print. But it had launched a whole bunch of people in the late 60s and early 70s to think about life. And it was called On the Loose by a young man named Terry Russell. But there's a quote in that book that I love. The quote is, "Adventure is not in the guidebook. Beauty cannot be found on the map." What you've heard tonight about career and money and job and home and church and you is really the grand adventure. And Albert's exactly right. The goal is the life you live that preserves your soul. And the fact is that we're preparing you for that life and to preserve that soul. Let me pray for you, and we're put a bow on this part of the evening. Father, thanks for the gift of wisdom and discernment freely passed. Allow us our own wisdom and discernment to catch that, and good friends to help us connect it. Thank you for others who care enough to challenge us, even when it may not be exactly what we thought we would hear. Blessings on these tonight who've invested this time. Return it to them in a life well lived. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. You are, join the tables.